I found the invitation to my wife's promotion party in her car by accident. My name wasn't on it. Not on the guest list. Not on the seating chart. Not even on the family photo schedule. Her parents had seats. Her brother had a seat. Her ex had my spot at their table. And tucked behind the seating chart was a little note that said the whole thing had been finalized by her father. I stood there in the driveway holding that envelope, trying to figure out how long I'd already been out of my own marriage without knowing it. My name is Mason Carter. I'm 43. And I own 3 coffee shops across the metro area. Not the trendy kind people post online for the lighting. I mean real working shops. Early deliveries. Burned out grinders. Payroll stress. Supply orders. Leaky sinks. Staff calling out at 5 in the morning. The kind of business that looks simple from the customer side and eats your life from the back room. I've been married to Lauren for 21 years. We got together young. Too young. Probably. But young people confuse staying power with safety. We had our daughter, Avery. Early. She's in college now. 3 hours away. Smart as hell. Studying biology. Living in a dorm that smells like microwave noodles and cheap detergent every time I visit. Old enough now to notice when adults are lying even if they think they're being smooth about it. Lauren works in medical sales. Good money. Good clothes. Flights to conferences. Nice hotels. Corporate dinners. A lot of smiling in rooms with people who wear badges and talk in polished little chunks. 3 weeks before all this, she'd gotten the call that she was being promoted to vice president of sales. Not officially public yet, but close enough that people already knew. I found the invitation on a Tuesday morning because I was looking for my insurance card in her SUV. We'd been meaning to put both vehicles on the same policy and save a little money. I was leaning across the passenger seat when I saw a cream-colored envelope jammed down by the console. Heavy paper. Expensive paper. The kind meant to make a person feel important before they even open it. I pulled it out and saw the company logo. MedCore Solutions invites you to celebrate Lauren Carter's promotion to Vice President of Sales. Friday night, Metropolitan Club. Reception and dinner to follow. There was a folded seating chart tucked inside. Table 3. Lauren Carter. Warren Cole. Denise Cole. Her parents, Evan Cole and his wife. Her brother and sister-in-law. And then Blake Turner. I looked at that name for a long time. Blake was Lauren's old boyfriend from college. I'd met him twice. Both times he had that smooth kind of confidence some men wear like a pressed shirt. He worked in hospitality consulting now. Or so I'd heard. Nice swits. White teeth. Easy laugh. The kind of man my in-laws always liked because he sounded expensive even when he was saying nothing. My name wasn't anywhere. Not at that table. Not at any table. I checked again because sometimes your eyes miss things when your brain doesn't want the truth yet. Still nothing. Then I found one more insert behind the seating chart. Family photo arrival schedule. Lauren. Her parents. Her brother and his wife. No husband. No Mason. Just a blank where common sense should have been. And clipped to the inside flap was a little sticky note in blue ink. Table 3, finalized per Warren. I knew Warren's handwriting well enough to know that note didn't get there by accident. My father-in-law had signed off on the arrangement himself. I stood there in the driveway with that envelope in my hand, hearing nothing but a dog barking 2 houses over and a delivery truck backing up somewhere down the street. It was a normal morning. Trash cans at the curb. Sprinklers running. Somebody jogging past with earbuds in. And right there in the middle of all that normal, I found out my wife had a whole public version of her life planned for Friday night. And I wasn't in it. Not hidden in the back. Not delayed. Removed. About 20 minutes later, the front door opened, and Lauren stepped out with a coffee mug in one hand and her phone in the other. She saw me standing there. Then she saw the envelope, and the look that crossed her face told me this wasn't going to be something small. She slowed down before she reached the driveway. Not a full stop. Just enough that I could see her mind trying to catch up with what I already had in my hand. Her phone was still against her ear for another second, before she pulled it away and ended the call without saying goodbye. The coffee mug stayed in her other hand. "Hey," she said. "Too light. Too normal. Thought you already left for Riverside." I held up the envelope. That was all I did. No speech. No accusation. Just held it where she could see the company logo and the edge of the seating chart still sticking out. She looked at it. Then at me. Then down at the hood of her car, like she needed somewhere safe to place the mug before saying anything. She set it down carefully on the hood, right by the windshield. Like hot coffee mattered more than what we were about to talk about. "Oh," she said. That one word sat there between us. I waited. Lauren crossed one arm over the other. Then uncrossed them again. She always did that when she wanted a few more seconds to build an answer. "You opened it. It was in your car. I was going to tell you." That landed wrong right away because people only say that when they already know they waited too long. "When?" I asked. She didn't answer that. The morning felt colder than it had a minute earlier. I could hear a lawnmower somewhere behind the neighbor's fence. I pulled the family photo insert out and held that up too. "No husband," I said. "No table. No picture. Just Blake." Lauren looked past me toward the street. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" She let out a breath through her nose. "Not angry yet. Just tired in that way people get when they think explaining something is beneath the situation. My parents requested the seating." I looked down at the sticky note still clipped inside. "Yeah," I said. "I saw that part. It's a corporate event." "Mason, my dad gets weird about those things. Your dad gets weird enough that your husband disappears. It's about optics." She said optics like it should explain everything by itself. I stood there, holding the envelope, waiting for the rest. Nothing came. "So Blake gets my chair because of optics." That was when her jaw tightened. Not because she felt caught. Because she knew this part would sound bad no matter how she said it. "He's consulting with the company right now," she said. "He's been helping with some distribution issues." I nodded once. "Your ex?" "Yes." "At your table?" "He's working with us." "With your parents?" She looked annoyed now, which somehow made it worse. "They like him." "Mason." The honesty came out flat. No soft edge. No apology. I watched her face while she said it, trying to see if there was any part of her that understood how that sounded. She kept going. "They always have. You know that." I did know that. Warren and Denise had liked Blake back when Lauren was 20. Back when he wore pressed shirts and talked about hotel margins at family dinners like he already belonged in rooms bigger than the one he was sitting in. Back then, I was the guy running espresso machines and fixing broken sinks in a rented shop that barely stayed open the first winter. But 21 years should have changed some things. Apparently not enough. And that matters now. I asked. Lauren folded her arms fully this time. "He speaks their language." I gave her a second in case she wanted to hear herself and stop. She didn't. "What language is that?" "The corporate world. Networking. Executive people. He fits that room better." The sentence hung there. She knew there was more in it. And so did I. I waited again. Finally, she said it. "You're great at what you do. But running coffee shops isn't exactly." She stopped there. Didn't finish it. Didn't need to. Not polished enough. Not impressive enough. Not the kind of success her father liked, saying out loud in a room with donors and vice presidents. I looked at the seating chart again. Blake Turner. Printed neatly, where my absence sat louder than his name. "You really let this happen," I said. Lauren shook her head like I was making it bigger than it was. "It's one dinner." "No," I said. "It's one dinner you planned without telling me, because you knew exactly how it looked." "I told you." "I was going to tell you." "When?" "Friday night, after he sat in my seat." That hit. For the first time, her face changed. Small, quick, but real. The kind of look people get when the truth reaches them 1 second too late. A car passed slowly at the end of the street. Lauren picked up her coffee again. but she didn't drink it. "I have to get to work," she said. Of course she did. That was the answer people use when they want a conversation to stay unfinished, because unfinished feels safer. I handed the invitation back to her. She took it without looking down. And for the first time that morning, I noticed she never once said sorry. She left 5 minutes later. Same as any other weekday. Coffee in one hand, work bag over her shoulder. Keys already out before she reached the driver's door. She didn't say anything else about Friday. Didn't explain the family photo list. Didn't explain why Blake's name was sitting where mine should have been. Just one quick look at me before she got in the SUV and backed out of the driveway. Then she was gone. I stood there until the sound of her engine faded. Then went inside. Grabbed my truck keys. And headed to Riverside. The Riverside shop opens at 6. But by the time I got there, morning rush had already started. 2 nurses from the clinic were waiting near pickup. One construction crew guy was asking why his usual order looked smaller. And Tyler was behind the register, trying to fix a printer jam with one hand while pouring drip coffee with the other. Normal noise. Normal problems. That helped. I tied on an apron, went straight behind the counter, and started working. When something in life stops making sense, simple work helps more than talking does. You grind beans. You wipe counters. You count sleeves of cups. You sign delivery sheets. One thing at a time until your head catches up. Around 8. The milk delivery came late. Around 8:30. One of the espresso heads started running too hot again. At 9. Tyler asked if I wanted him to call maintenance. I told him no and fixed it myself. He looked at me once while I was tightening the valve. "You okay?" "Yeah." He waited like he thought maybe more would come. Nothing did. By 10. The rush slowed down enough that I could step into the back room and look over invoices. That was when my brain started lining up dates whether I wanted it to or not. 8 months earlier was when Riverside first started slipping. Not badly at first. Just enough to feel strange. 3 corporate breakfast accounts we'd had for years suddenly switched vendors within 6 weeks. Same delivery windows. Same neighborhoods. Same kind of orders. They all went to Velocity Coffee. New place across town. Cleaner branding. Lower prices. Aggressive opening discounts. At first, I told myself that was just business. A new shop opens. People test it. Some contracts move. That happens, but what stayed with me was how exact their pricing always felt. Too exact. They undercut certain contracts by amounts so specific it looked like somebody had seen my own sheets before making theirs. At the time, I blamed luck. Or timing. Or my own bad read on the market. Now Blake Turner's name was sitting in my head where it didn't belong. Hospitality consultant. Working with Lauren's company. At her table? In my seat? I pulled my phone out and called Harold Bennett. Harold had handled my books for 15 years. 68 years old. Quiet voice. Sharp eyes. Never wasted words. He answered on the second ring. "Morning. Mason. You busy?" "Busy enough." "What happened?" He knew me well enough to skip polite steps. I leaned against the shelf near the syrup boxes. I need full activity on every joint account Lauren and I have. 2 years back. There was a pause. That kind where an older man hears the part you didn't say. Checking too. All of it. Looking for something specific. I don't know yet. Another pause. Then paper moving on his desk. I'll pull it. Anything unusual. Anything large. Anything moved without me knowing. Flag it. You think there's a reason. I looked through the little backroom window toward the front counter. Tyler was helping a customer with a rewards card issue like nothing in the world had changed. "Yeah," I said. "I think there might be." Harold didn't push. "I'll call you tomorrow. Keep it quiet." "Always do." I hung up and stayed there another minute. Just listening to the hum of the fridge unit and somebody laughing near the front. By evening, I was tired enough that my body wanted normal, even if my head didn't. Lauren got home late. A little after 7, Still in work clothes. Still carrying that same polished energy she wore after office days that involved too many meetings. She went straight to the stove, set down her bag, and started heating sauce like Tuesday had reset itself. No mention of the driveway. No mention of Blake. No mention of Friday. Like silence could smooth over paper, I opened a beer and leaned against the counter while she stirred. Then she said it without looking at me. Blake called earlier. Casual. Too casual. I didn't answer. He wanted to confirm a few details for Friday. Still stirring. Like his name belonged in our kitchen now. I took one drink before speaking. When did he start working with your company? Lauren shrugged. A while ago. When? 6 months. Maybe 7. That number landed clean because it matched too much. I set the bottle down. 7 months ago was when Riverside started losing contracts. She stopped stirring for half a second. Then kept going. And then she laughed. Not loud. Just one short breath through her nose. You think Blake is stealing coffee contracts now? I watched the back of her shoulders. I think timing matters. He's consulting on distribution. Mason. Hospitals. Medical accounts. Not your coffee shops. You tell him things about my business. That made her turn. For what reason would I do that? I looked at her for a second. Because 2 days earlier, I wouldn't have asked that question at all. Now I did. And the worst part was, I still didn't know if I wanted the answer. Lauren looked at me like I had crossed into something unnecessary. Not angry. Not guilty either. More like I had said something inconvenient at the wrong hour. She turned the burner down and moved the pan off the heat. You're tired? She said. That's what this is. Maybe. Maybe not. I didn't answer because anything I said at that point would have turned into an argument. And I still didn't have enough in my hands yet. Just timing. Names. And a seating chart. We ate in mostly quiet. Forks on plates. TV noise from the living room. Her phone lighting up twice beside her glass. Face down both times. She checked it after dinner in the kitchen while rinsing dishes. I noticed because she angled the screen away without thinking. That kind of movement only stands out once your eyes are already paying attention. That night I slept in the guest room. Not because of some big speech. I just said I had an early delivery and didn't want to wake her. She nodded, like that made sense. There were still storage boxes in there from when Avery moved into her dorm. Winter clothes. Old notebooks. One broken lamp we never threw out. I pushed a box with my foot and lay down fully dressed for a while, staring at the ceiling. At 6 the next morning, my phone rang. Harold. I answered before the second ring. You at a place where you can talk? He asked. I'm in the truck. Come by my office. That was all he said. No details. No warm-up. Just enough to tell me whatever he found was not something for a phone call. His office sat above an insurance agency downtown. Same building he'd worked out of for years. Brown carpet. Old framed tax certificates. Coffee that always tasted burned no matter who made it. When I walked in, he already had papers spread across his desk. 3 stacks. Not neat stacks either. Opened folders. Highlighted lines. Sticky tabs. He pointed to the chair across from him. Sit. I sat. He slid the first sheet toward me. Joint savings account. The account Lauren and I had kept for years. Insurance payout after my father died. Franchise profit we never touched unless it mattered. Long-term money. Safe money. 3 years earlier, the balance had been $240,000. Now it was 42. I looked up at him. What am I missing? You're not missing anything. Harold said. That's the current number. He handed me another page. Withdrawal slip. $80,000. 18 months earlier. Memo line. Investment opportunity. My name signed at the bottom. Except it wasn't my hand. It was close enough that a bank clerk wouldn't stop it. But I knew my own signature, the way you know your own face in bad light. I didn't sign that. I figured. He slid the next one. 70,000. 6 months later. Then another. 45,000. 3 withdrawals. 3 signatures that looked like mine until you stared long enough. My throat felt dry. Where did it go? Harold handed me another printout. Wire transfers. Same destination every time. Turner Hospitality Ventures, LLC. I read it twice before the name landed. Turner. Blake Turner. Of course. There was no shock in that moment. Not real shock. More like your body finally catching up to something your head had already started preparing for. How long have you had access to our business logs? I asked. Harold leaned back. I checked after you called because the timing bothered me too. He reached for another folder. This one had printouts from my accounting software. Late night access logs. User. Lauren Carter. Timestamps between 9:30 and 11:15 on different nights across months. Vendor contracts opened. Corporate pricing files opened. Profit margin reports. Exported. Delivery schedules viewed. Not random clicks. Specific things. The kind somebody would open if they wanted to understand exactly where pressure points were. She still had admin rights because of tax filings. Harold said, "You never removed them." I knew that. Because there had never been a reason to. Until now. I stared at the list and thought about every night she said she was finishing emails in bed while I fell asleep first. Harold reached for one more paper. Business registration records. Velocity Coffee. The competitor that had taken Riverside contracts. Registered 8 months ago. Silent partner listed under corporate filings. Turner Hospitality Ventures. Blake hadn't just shown up at Lauren's company. He had been sitting inside my business before I even knew his name mattered again. I stood up and walked to the window because sitting suddenly felt too small. Outside, people were carrying coffees, checking parking meters, living through a regular Thursday morning. Inside that office, my marriage looked different than it had 48 hours earlier. Not damaged. Structured. Planned. And worst of all, patient. Harold let the silence sit. Then he said, "There's more." I turned back. He tapped one line on the last sheet. A wire memo from 3 months earlier. Small typed note. Consulting expansion. That phrase hit harder than the number. Cold words. Clean words. Like this had all been organized enough to deserve labels. I looked at Harold. What do I do first? He folded his hands. First, you stop thinking like a husband and start thinking like an owner. I stayed in Harold's office another 40 minutes. Long enough to copy every statement, every transfer record, every access log, every page with my name written where my hand had never touched paper. He gave me a plain folder. Nothing marked outside. No dramatic warning. No speech. Just one sentence before I left. Whatever you do next, do it before she knows what you found. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat and didn't turn the radio on. The house was empty. Lauren was at work. Her coffee mug from that morning was still in the sink. Half a lipstick mark near the rim. A dish towel folded beside it. Small, normal things that made the folder feel heavier than it was. I stood in the kitchen for a minute. Then called Dana Brooks. I knew Dana from chamber events. Family attorney. Mid-50s. Sharp voice. Never wasted time pretending hard things were softer than they were. She answered herself. Dana Brooks. It's Mason Carter. A pause. Then her voice changed just enough to recognize the name. What happened? My wife moved almost $200,000 into her ex-boyfriend's company using forged signatures. That bought silence. Then, can you be in my office at 9? I can. Bring everything. Her office was downtown, 4 blocks from Harold's. By 9 to 10, I had the folder open across her conference table. She read without interrupting for nearly 20 minutes. Only asked short questions. How long has the ex been back in the picture? Unknown. Shared business access still active. For now. Any confrontation yet? Not beyond finding out I wasn't invited to her promotion dinner. That made her look up. She excluded you publicly before she stole quietly. Looks that way. Dana leaned back. That actually helps. I almost asked how. But she answered before I did. It establishes pattern. Public distance. Financial concealed. Outside involvement. Courts understand patterns better than speeches. She kept reading. When she reached the access logs, she tapped the page once. You remove her access today. What about tonight? Tonight? Her promotion dinner? Dana took her glasses off. You asking me, as your lawyer or as a person? Both. As your lawyer. You stay away from that event. No confrontation. No public scene. No text messages you wouldn't want read in court. She set the glasses down. As a person. I'd tell you the same thing. So I just let her go. No. Dana said. You let her go while you prepare correctly. By the time I left, the first step was clear. Monday. Separation papers drafted. But before Monday, I needed my side clean. The next call I made was to the bank through Harold. Transfer my half from the joint accounts. Remove joint authorization where legally possible. Freeze what could be frozen. No warning. No discussion. Then I drove to the downtown location. Tyler was restocking lids when I came in. He looked up. You good? Need you to handle extra hours next week. He straightened. Everything okay? Personal stuff. That should have ended it. But he stayed where he was. Then said, careful. This about Lauren. I looked at him. What about Lauren? He shifted his weight like he already regretted speaking. Nothing official. I saw her a couple months ago. Where? That Italian place near Grant Avenue? With who? He looked down once before answering. A guy in a navy jacket. Older than me. Nice watch. They were sitting close. That matched Blake before he even said the name. Did they see you? No. How close? Tyler gave the answer without dressing it up. Close enough that I noticed his hand was across the table. I nodded once. That was all. He waited for something bigger. It didn't come. Run payroll clean this weekend. I said. And make sure Riverside gets full bean delivery Friday. He nodded slowly. By 4 that afternoon, I was at the storage unit. 10x10. Metal door. Concrete floor. Cold even in daylight. I had rented it 2 weeks earlier under the business name after the first strange feeling I couldn't explain. At the time, I told myself it was for overflow records. Now I knew why I had kept the receipt. Inside were old tax boxes. Business files. Property papers. Avery's tuition records. Insurance copies. I pulled out what mattered. House deed early, franchise filings, loan documents, tax returns, backup drive. Then I went home. Lauren's car still wasn't there. She had already gone to the Metropolitan Club. Probably getting ready for photos. Probably standing beside people who had decided I looked wrong in the room. I packed slowly. 2 suitcases. Laptop. Toiletries. A box of papers. Nothing dramatic. Just what I would need if I didn't come back soon. When I finished, I took off my wedding ring. Set it beside the coffee maker. Right where she would see it first in the morning. Then I stood there 1 second longer than necessary. Looking at that small circle on the counter. 21 years came down to something that fit beside a machine we bought on sale at Costco. At 7:15. Sitting in the storage unit on a folding chair. I opened Instagram. Lauren had already posted. Podium photo. Smile wide enough for a room that had no space for me. I checked tagged photos. One wider shot showed table 3. Warren. Denise. Her brother. And Blake Turner, sitting in the chair nearest Lauren. Smiling like he had always belonged there. I took a screenshot. Saved it. Named the file. And the night she chose him. The storage unit stayed cold after dark. Concrete floor. Thin metal walls. One fluorescent strip overhead that made every box look flatter than it was. I sat there on the folding chair with my phone in one hand and the screenshot still open. Table 3. Lauren smiling. Blake leaning slightly toward her. Her parents sitting like none of it needed explanation. I zoomed in once. then locked the screen and set the phone face down on the box beside me. At 7:23, it buzzed again. A text from Avery. "Dad, are you home? Need to talk tonight." That was unusual right away. Avery usually texted in full thoughts. Little details. Questions about whether I'd mailed the winter jacket she forgot last weekend. A picture from campus. Something normal? This had none of that. I called her instead of texting back. She picked up on the first ring. "Dad." Her voice already sounded tight. "Hey, what's wrong?" A short pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Working late." That answer came out automatically. Too automatic. She caught it right away. "No, you're not." I leaned back in the chair. "What makes you say that?" "Because I called Riverside first. Tyler said you left hours ago." I looked toward the storage unit door even though there was nothing there to see. "What's going on?" "Avery." Another pause. Then she lowered her voice. "Grandma called me last week." That got my attention faster than anything else had all day. She asked if I was excited for Mom's promotion dinner. I waited. She asked if I'd met Blake Turner yet. The name landed hard, even though I already knew it. "What did you say?" I asked who Blake Turner was. Her breathing changed a little on the line. "And Grandma got weird." That sounded exactly like Denise. Too polished when she wanted something covered. Too quick when she didn't want to answer directly. She said he was helping your mom with business stuff. Avery said. But the way she said it felt wrong. Like I was supposed to already know who he was. I closed my eyes for a second. A fluorescent hum filled the silence. Then Avery asked the thing she had clearly already decided before calling. "Mom's been cheating on you." "Hasn't she?" No build-up. No soft landing. Just straight through it. I didn't answer right away because lying there would have been worse than silence. Finally I said, "Yeah." The words stayed there. Avery didn't speak for a few seconds. When she did, her voice had changed. Not louder, just flatter. How long? I don't know yet. That was true. I knew enough to understand structure now. Not enough to know when it started. "Are you home?" "No." "Where are you?" I looked around the unit. Tax boxes. Property papers. Backup drive. 2 suitcases by the wall. Somewhere quiet. "I'm driving back tonight." "No." "Dad?" "No." "Avery." She stopped because I almost never cut her off. "I need you to stay where you are." "What happened?" I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the phone. "Your mom moved money. A lot of it. To Blake." Silence. Then, "How much?" "Enough." That answer held because numbers would only drag her deeper. She breathed out slowly. I knew something was off. "How?" She stopped answering simple questions. That sounded like Lauren too. When I asked if you were going Friday, she changed the subject. I leaned forward. Elbows on knees. "I'm filing separation papers Monday." The words came out calm because by then they were already real. Avery started crying quietly. Not loud. Just enough that I heard her trying not to. "I'm sorry," she said. "You didn't do anything. She keeps calling me like everything's normal." "I know. You should have told me sooner." That one landed because she was right in a way. Maybe I should have. Maybe I kept hoping the pieces would turn into something smaller if I waited long enough. I needed facts first. I said. Another long pause. Then Avery said, "I'm still coming home." "No. Dad, listen to me. You do not need to walk into this tonight. She's my mother, and you're my daughter. Which is why I'm telling you to stay out of the middle while I handle this." That held for a few seconds. Then her voice dropped lower. "When this is done, I'm on your side." I looked down at the floor. Not because I needed to. Because hearing that from your kid hit somewhere, words don't help. You don't have to pick sides. I said, "I already did." I let that sit. Then, said the only thing that mattered. "I love you." That part doesn't move. Avery cried harder then, but still quiet. I love you too. We stayed on the line another minute without saying much. Then, she finally agreed to stay on campus. After the call ended, I picked my phone back up. Lauren had posted another photo. Different angle, same smile, same room. I looked at it for maybe 3 seconds. Then turned the phone off completely. By then there wasn't much left to think through. Only order. I turned my phone back on the next morning around 8. Lauren had called 6 times. 3 voicemails. 2 texts. 1 from her number, 1 from a number I didn't know yet, but guessed right away belonged to one of her parents. I listened to none of the voicemails. I called her back instead. She answered before the first full ring. Mason. Where are you? Her voice was tight, controlled. The kind people use when they are already halfway into panic but still trying to sound reasonable. I looked out through the hotel window. Parking lot. Wet pavement. A delivery truck backing into the lot next door. Does it matter? You left. Yes. You took your things. Yes. A short breath on her end. I came home and your ring was on the counter. I waited. Then asked the one thing that mattered less than what came after it. But still needed saying. How was the party? Silence. A few seconds. Then, Mason. Please don't do this. It looked full from the pictures. Another silence. This one longer. Then she tried again. If this is about Blake sitting at the table, it's not about the table. That stopped her. I let the next words come slow because they needed to land clean. It's about $195,000. Nothing. No breath. No answer. Just silence long enough that I heard something metallic on my side of the room shift when the AC kicked on. Then finally, what? Turner Hospitality Ventures. Still nothing. I sat with Harold yesterday. I saw the transfers. I saw the signatures. I saw your login history in my business files. Her breathing changed. Mason. I can explain. Can you explain why my signature is on withdrawal slips I never signed? It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. She started talking too fast after that. Words tripping over each other. Investment. Temporary. Blake needed startup money. It was supposed to come back. It wasn't personal. She was trying to help create something bigger. That word stayed with me. Bigger. Like my side of life had become too small for her long before Friday night. You moved retirement money. I said, you gave him access to pricing he had no business seeing. And then he opened a shop against me. That wasn't my intention. Intent doesn't change bank records. She was crying by then. Quiet crying. But clear enough. I never wanted it like this. I looked down at the edge of the hotel desk. The wood had a chipped corner near the lamp. Funny what your eyes settle on when a marriage is ending. Monday morning, Dana files separation papers. I said, you talked to a lawyer? Yes. Mason. Don't do that yet. It's already happening. Her voice dropped lower. What about Avery? She knows. That hit harder than anything else I said. She talked to you? She called me? Denise made sure she had enough pieces already. Lauren said nothing. Then, almost whispering, please come home. We're past that. Another long silence. Then she asked the question people ask when they finally realize the story moved without them. Are you pressing charges? I answered the only honest way. I'm documenting what happened. What the DA does after that isn't mine to control. She cried harder then. But even hearing it, I felt almost nothing except how tired my body was. By Monday afternoon, Dana had filed. By Wednesday, Blake's company got served on the civil side. Discovery opened fast because the transfer trail was clean. 2 corporate clients froze new contracts with Velocity the same week, once legal notices started circulating. A supplier paused his credit line after seeing the filing. Tyler told me Blake showed up at Riverside one afternoon asking if I was there. Tyler told him I was busy and closed the office door before he finished talking. A week later, Lauren called from work. Different tone. Flat. HR had opened an internal review because Blake's consulting relationship had never been disclosed properly, while outside transfers and conflict questions were now attached to her name. Her promotion still existed on paper, but the company pulled the celebration photos off their internal page before the week ended. No announcement. No explanation. The pictures were just gone. Lauren's father texted twice after that. First angry, then careful. The second message only said, "Can we talk privately? No lawyers." I sent one line back. "You already had a private table." Then blocked the number. 3 weeks later, Lauren signed the first round without arguing. Too much paper in front of her by then. Too many dates lined up. Too many signatures she couldn't explain. Blake stopped showing up in public, anywhere, local, after Velocity lost another 2 accounts. One Friday morning, his front window had paper taped inside from the county over unpaid vendor notices. No crowd. No scene. Just paper on glass before opening time. Avery came home for Thanksgiving but did something small I noticed right away. She set her overnight bag by the hallway wall and looked at her phone. Saw Lauren's name come up and turned the screen face down without answering. No speech. No performance. Just one quiet choice. We cooked anyway. Turkey in the oven. Steam on the kitchen window. Tyler covered Riverside for 3 hours so I could stay home longer. That afternoon, Lauren texted once. "I'm sorry for all of it." I read it. Deleted it. Then went back to wiping syrup off the counter because holiday orders had already started piling up. Some things don't need answers once the facts are already done talking. And honestly, if you found out your own seat had been given away before anyone admitted what was really happening, would you have left at the invitation? Or waited until the paperwork showed the full truth? If this hit something real for you, share it below. I read the comments. And if you want more stories where quiet choices carry real weight, subscribe to Quiet Family Justice.